Welcome to Let's Talk Period, where we hold talks related to all things feminism, menstrual equity, and more. We wish to bring conversations about topics that may typically be taboo in our everyday lives and normalize these ideas in the Berkeley community and beyond. In every podcast, we host special guests to learn about their work in the gender equity space and explore the intersection between their work and menstrual equity. To introduce ourselves, my name is Vin Yen Ho Pham, and I go by the she, her pronouns.
Hi, my name is Joyce, and I also go by the she, her pronouns.
So today we're hosting Apoorva Prakash, and she is currently UC Berkeley's ACC Senator.
Yep, thank you, Apoorva, for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Our first question to you is like, how did you get involved in menstrual equity? And like, you can just talk about like your personal experience or.
Yeah, I definitely started thinking about this space because I grew up in a South Asian Hindu family, which really exposed me to strong stigmas about menstruation at a very young age. I remember even before I myself started menstruating, I noticed how my grandfather would treat my mother while she was on her period. He'd literally stand across the room from her at all times, wouldn't eat food that she had cooked, wouldn't touch surfaces she was near. It was really insane. I honestly don't understand where the stigma comes from in the Hindu community about how menstruating women are impure, but I also realize there's a big hypocrisy behind the stigma. Because usually in the Hindu community, when a girl gets her first period, her family hosts a kind of prayer ceremony for her. And it's supposed to be a really happy, positive event for her family because it signifies that their daughter is fertile, which is super strange to me because I also went through a version of this when I got my period. And I remember my parents being so happy when I had my period. And then every time after that when I got my period, I remember I wasn't allowed to go near the study where my parents kept their Hindu deities. I wasn't allowed to touch certain things. I wasn't allowed to go near my parents while they were praying. I had to wash my hair on the fourth day of my period, and then during this time, all my clothes and bed sheets had to be washed. And if I wore clothes I wore on my period, I was still unclean or whatever. It was honestly very strange to me, and it was really embarrassing that my seemingly modern progressive parents made me go through these really regressive practices because of their religion. And I remember my mom, when I was younger, she was also against me using tampons because there's another stigma in the South Asian community where using tampons and menstrual cups is like losing your virginity. It's so weird for me to even think about, but this is the mentality that I've seen in a lot of members of our community and including some members of my family. And then as I did more research about this, I realized that in places like rural India and Nepal, young girls are going through way worse than what I went through. In some of these rural villages, menstruating girls and women are literally forced to live in super unsanitary huts during their period away from their homes. And there have been many cases where they actually die while in these menstruation huts. And not only that, they have super limited access to sanitary products. So literally these women living away from these homes use sand or wood shavings when they get their periods. And that really got me thinking about menstrual inequity and access to sanitary products because I luckily was never in a situation where I could not afford sanitary products, but these products are nothing short of absolutely essential for me. And that goes for all menstruators. And, menstrual products are not cheap whatsoever. And it would definitely be a financial burden for low income menstruators and especially for homeless menstruators, which is a whole other crisis that continues to go really unaddressed by our society. Um, and moreover, even beyond making menstrual products cheaper and tax-free, it doesn't really make sense that these products aren't treated the same as other sanitary products like toilet paper and paper towels. And it was really horrible, even for me when I was in school, when I would unexpectedly get my period. It was just so stressful and embarrassing. If I didn't have a pad or tampon, I would just be um worried. I was like, oh, which friend am I going to get a tampon from this time? How am I going to do it? I'm sitting in class. And even if I did have a pad, I would be, stressed that someone else would see my pad through my leggings or my tampon would leak. And, those kind of regular things that menstruators worry about as they just go about their day. And yeah, I'm sure this is a super relatable story for you guys and pretty much everyone who menstruates. Um, and then I guess finally, when I got to Berkeley, I saw that there was such an emphasis on basic needs, especially with food and housing insecurity. And I really couldn't understand why menstrual products were not considered a basic need on campus because, they are nothing short of essential. So that's kind of how I got involved with the menstrual equity space on campus.
Wow, I can definitely relate with your experiences as like especially with like being stressed about like what you should do if you get your period in class. And yeah, that was really insightful. I didn't really know about the culture around in the South Asian area about menstrual equity. So my next question for you is like I also see like these same instances of menstrual stigma at our own campus despite liberalness of our university as we're like Berkeley. How do you think we can normalize discussion about menstruating and eliminating stigma at Berkeley?
I guess like on the most simple level, like literally we need to continue talking about our periods. I've seen like great movements among female artists and comedians that discuss menstruation, and I think we just really need to make this more common among our student population. Educate each other on what happens when we take menstruation stigmas too far. I mean, I have been trying to promote awareness on stigmas in the South Asian community, and honestly, when I talk about this, people are shocked. Like you, people are like, "Oh, I haven't, like, I didn't even know this was a thing." Which is why I've been trying to talk a lot about it in my personal capacity. What you guys are doing right now, this is how we help normalize these discussions, like hosting podcasts about menstruation, about menstrual equity. My AACC department, menstrual equity department, actually has also been working on a social media campaign by menstruators for menstruators to discuss stigmas around menstruation, like how we need to make this more normal. It's a lot of it just goes a lot of it I think is just based on education and talking about it with our friends, our peers, other students. And I think another big aspect that we should discuss is normalizing the fact that the trans community also menstruates. You know, menstruation isn't just a women's issue. It's an everyone issue. It's a feminist issue. Um, I think that's something really important. That's something, I've really been trying to emphasize using the right language when we talk about menstruators. It's not just women and girls who are menstruating. It's like members of the trans community. There are men that menstruate, which is why I think like it's really important to emphasize the language of menstruators rather than, like girls and women. Um, yeah, I guess like those are a few ways I think like we as students can really help to normalize the stigmas on campus. And you guys are obviously doing a really great job with this by like hosting this podcast series.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and I definitely agree with you.
Yeah. So you mentioned that the ASUC is also working on menstrual equity. So what are some projects that the ASUC is currently working on?
Yeah, so besides our social media campaign, which is called Period, please check it out on our Instagram page. But we're also working to get a pilot program for free menstrual products in our campus bathrooms. There are some really great student-led initiatives on campus to provide menstrual products in certain like library bathrooms, but these these kind of initiatives, aren't long-term sustainable because as students graduate, how do we know that these kind of campaigns are going to be continued? That's why I think it's really important that we institutionalize sanitary products as a part of janitorial services. So that's something that my ACC department is trying to work on. We're trying to apply for grants to get these pilot programs started. We've been talking a lot with facilities and janitorial services to see like, how are you guys right now providing other sanitary products like paper towels and toilet paper, and how do we ensure that menstrual products are a part of that. We're also trying to put out more research on menstruation, because this is such an unexplored space in our scientific community, which is probably a factor into why so many misconceptions about menstruation exist. So I have a research division in my department that's trying to work on, in the long term, putting out some formalized research papers about how menstruation affects us in terms of health and wellness, as well as how menstruation affects the members of our underprivileged communities. And with regards to that, we are also planning some service projects to engage with underprivileged members of our community and increase their access to free and affordable menstrual products.
That sounds amazing. And I definitely have been, me myself, I've been looking for like menstrual equity research at our own university, but I can't, I have trouble finding that research myself.
Mhm.
Okay, what's one takeaway you think menstruators from our generation could be empowered by?
That's a really great question. One key takeaway I think is don't let anyone tell you that your period is something that's dirty or a weakness. I'm not going to say that I think menstruation is a wonderful thing just because as a menstruator, it's a big detriment in my life. However, I think it's a very powerful thing. And I feel, super powerful knowing that I can still go about my day, do all my tasks while I'm literally menstruating at the same time. And it's so great for me to think about the fact that there's so many other menstruators around me that are like experiencing these stigmas, experiencing all the negative effects of menstruation. We didn't even discuss that. The fact that like when you menstruate, not only is it super uncomfortable for you, but there's so many side effects that come along with menstruating. Like for example, like literally cramps, bloating, like mood swings, bad poor mental health. There's so many just biological effects of menstruating that no one talks about and everyone just kind of endures. And I think that's so powerful for us as menstruators that like we go through this every month and we're still like able to function, like able to succeed, like do amazing things. Like literally there are menstruators in the government, there are menstruators that are leading companies, like there are menstruators doing all these amazing things. And while they do that, they get their period on a monthly basis. So I think that menstruation isn't something that's unclean or something that makes you weak. I think it's something that is really powerful. And I honestly think all menstruators are superheroes.
Yeah, I think so too as well. Like just thinking about like I have like a midterm like coming up, but my period came and I was just like knocked out of it. And I can't imagine like how some people may even get symptoms worse than me in terms of cramps and
Mhm.
nausea and all that. Like what are your thoughts on that?
No, honestly, I think about that so much. Like, I think about the fact that, like, there's like so many Olympic athletes that are menstruators, and it's not like they're gonna like cancel the Olympics because they're on their period. Like, it's so like I sometimes feel like when I'm on my period, it's so hard for me to just like walk around, like, let alone exercise. And people are literally competing in the Olympics, like, while menstruating. I think that's like so powerful and amazing. So, oh my gosh, good luck on your midterm, Vinny. Like, they're just like, I think about stuff like that all the time. It's like we still have to like, it's not like we can just cancel our lives or put our lives on hold because we get our period. And like, honestly, that is just so powerful.
I know, but I do hear like exercise can help or something. Maybe they get lighter, but I still can see that like oh yeah, I also heard that like I learned this in health class back in high school, but something about like some athletes since they have to be on a certain diet that may like affect their health overall, especially with menstruation. But I don't know too much about that.
Oh, Apoorva, I wanted to ask about something you talked about earlier. How far do you think that the project you're taking on with the ASUC can go in terms of impact?
Yeah,
Yeah.
wait,
Mhm.
also like I can like lead in with like so other schools like as I'm also like help doing research on under your department, um I've been seeing that other institutions in the past few years have been implementing the same pilot program in UC Davis, Brown University, and recently the New York City district has implemented like a full um, pilot program where like free menstrual products are able to be distributed in a whole city for that. How far do you think this can go, especially since there are initiatives currently trying to help the whole UC system or the whole CSU system implement free distribution and products? So, do you think that in the end, would this could this go more towards beyond our campus, or what do you think our future could look like?
Yeah, I definitely think that, the projects we work on set a precedent for what we expect for universities on like in America. And definitely like a lot of what we're basing our pilot program off, like you mentioned, is what UC Davis did or what Brown University did. We're using them as an example for how we're going to structure our grant proposals, how we're trying to structure um, our pilot program. And I hope that we are able to set an example not only for future students at Berkeley, but for other college campuses that like you as a student can affect incredible change on campus. You as a student can do so much in providing basic needs to your peers. So because I'm graduating this year, so I really want to hope that like the impact of like my department of what the ACC can achieve will go beyond our campus, like, and that other campuses are will be able to take this as an example.
For sure. Yeah, thank you for that, Forva. And I think that should be wrapping up our episode. So thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah, oh my
Thank you.
gosh, thank you so much, Vinny and Joyce. It was honestly so great to talk about this. I'm always really happy to spread the word about menstrual equity and menstrual wellness. So thank you for giving me this platform to do so.